to tonight's show, and yes, you may all start laughing. Once you're finished, we can move forward. All right, good. Let's move forward. How are you all doing? I see people from Connecticut. Hello. People from all over the place. Of course, Lance Pickett taking us on a journey of greetings from around the world. And yes. Oh, my goodness. Oh, no, wait. That's alcohol. So there we are. Yeah, well, I thought of doing something new. And it's not very good because I did it myself in a mirror. And anyway. So as long as it looks good from the front, you guys never see the back, which is absolutely fine. Anyway, thank you for the support. I do appreciate it. One of my housemates, I walked in to the kitchen this morning after doing it, and her face was a picture of, oh my God, what have you done? Anyway, that's one thing, wonderful thing about hair is that it grows back. It really does. So you can do all sorts of amazing things with it. Anyway, all right, we are answering your questions tonight. So if you have any RPG questions, I have a question for all of you, because I'm seeing all of the wonderful people that I have seen recently, as in last night, which is fantastic. My question to you is, how many of you are actually still playing RPGs online, or have you just sort of given up and waiting for everyone to be able to come back and gather around the table? That's a question that I put to you. So how many of you are still playing, and if you are you playing online, or what's the story? So there we are. Honourable 596, straight out the gate. How would you handle a character, be they player or NPC, with a psychological compulsion to wear a mask, who doesn't feel like themselves without the mask on, and who's willing to exploit the fact for deceit and infiltration? Well, as the player, if a player wants to do that, that's fine. It's a great quirk. It allows us to build on that and to explore it, and possibly they want to find a better mask or there's many options that you can go with for adventure quests. They want to find a better mask. They want to understand the power of masks and obviously masks and that sort of thing. So that's very interesting. In terms of an NPC wanting to hide behind the mask and then use the mask for infiltration purposes, absolutely. I mean, masks are very topical these days, without a doubt. But as long as it doesn't get in the way of the story, then that's okay. And I also think that when the mask is removed, the character needs to have a normal response to that. If the mask is gone, they need to feel as if it's gone, but not derail the entire story to try and get back on track, I think, is the other important thing. So yeah, I think that's it. I don't know if I'm actually answering specifically what you're looking for, but that would be my thought off the top of my head. Jared Campbell, well done for starting role-playing just last month. That's fantastic. Which monastery am I joining? Isn't it the other way around? Don't they have a bald spot at the back of their head? Oh, that bald spot's got a name. What is the name of the bald spot that monks traditionally had in the back of their head? It has a very specific name. I think it was an Italian word. Anyway, it has a very specific name. Let's see. Where are we? Frederick Schmidt says, I already gave up. I'm not getting back into online TTRPG because I have not much options. Why don't you have many options, Frederick Schmidt? RPGTablefinder.com will give you plenty of tables to choose from. Anyway, Big Goose, that's a new name. I haven't seen that name in a while, or at least I'm not familiar with it. I'm doing a post-apocalyptic sci-fi Mad Max sort of setting on Mars. That's brilliant. Is it a terraformed Mars, is my first question. I'm having trouble setting up the economy for each settlement. What ways would would you work on for making each settlement unique? Well, okay, so immediately my first question is, terraformed, yes or no? Is it gigantic red sand dunes where the atmosphere is slowly being corrected and we can slowly start to get resources in which case obviously Vasa, water, becomes a potential tradable resource? I know it's awfully cliched, but it is absolutely vital. If If they don't have access to water, they die. It could also be air. Do you have 10 canisters of clean air? Yes, we do. Right. Well, that's worth fuel or supplies. So always look at what is the resource that is in rarest supply, but which is of critical value. So when we think of gold, for some cultures, gold was incredibly rare, and the value was that it gave those in power the appearance of having even more power, because they were so powerful that they could devote resources to gathering this very rare element, and then it was turned into beautiful things. On the other hand, in cultures where it was very common, it wasn't used as a currency because it was very common. Instead, alternative things were used. So I would look at very specifically, what is it that they need? What is it that they have access to in abundance? And if you want each settlement to be different, one settlement that is based on an oasis, water is not going to be of value to them. So you might arrive in your Mad Max style truck with a litre of water thinking it's worth a fortune. Meanwhile, they have all the water they could possibly want. For them, what's important is perhaps clean air, or perhaps it's filters that allow them to purify their water. So it's those kinds of things. It's almost a barter system, but at the same time it isn't. And once your players start to learn those different economies, that could actually be quite fun. So you don't want it to be too complicated, and you don't want the exchange to be too ridiculous. So 1 litre of water is worth 20 filters, 20 filters are worth 100 tires. Then that becomes a little bit complicated. I would simplify that side of things and just say filters are worth tires and tires are worth water, and each of the different groups are charging different things. So that's definitely something that I would look at in terms of my approach to that. And I think that will set you on the right path. I do think that unless they are sufficiently advanced, actual coinage has no value. Because remember, currency, money, comes from a centralized government. And you only have that once you have the capacity to set up a mint and to produce your own currency. Beforehand, it's bartering based on rarity value. Now, there were many groups, mainly islanders or those that lived on the coast, that used a very specific type of shell as currency. But again, the shells were very rare, and they were used for decoration and decorative purposes, and indicated that you had plenty of time to go and find these shells instead of hunter-gathering. So there's always that prestige element that you need to take into account, and then drive into the player's sort of sense of amazement and wonderment. So there you are. Xander the Green, and I have not forgotten about your book, Xander. My face shield arrives tomorrow. It sounds awfully dramatic, but it actually isn't. It's literally just a face screen thing. So I might be able to get to a post office if they're open, and I think they are. Anyway, I haven't forgotten about your book. I owe Xander a signed copy of The Complete Guide to Nautical Campaigns. As a player, what should you do if you're the one getting all the cool loot unintentionally and everyone else is not, basically getting nothing if you don't get it for them? Okay, well, look, I mean, I have been at tables where one player loots and the rest aren't looting for whatever reason. They're doing their own thing. They're out there, they're fighting, or they just don't seem to care. And that player ends up with all the cool stuff. And you're like, well, actually, that was actually supposed to be for the other player. And that was actually supposed to be for the other player. And that was supposed to be, so sometimes it's not intentional that happens, but it is just that perhaps you're better at looting, or you're more conscious of the fact that you need to loot in order to get loot. I also find that sometimes lacking. I would personally, if you are the one getting all the loot, I would take a moment once the battle is over and your characters are all gathered together healing up, to then divide the loot up and say, all right, well, this is what was found. Let's share it out equally. Even if the others don't seem to be interested in looting themselves, it will start to cause a problem in the game. If you've got all of the magic items and they don't have any, balancing becomes quite the issue. So I would personally, as a player, meta it out and share it out with the rest of them, and encourage them to look. Don't forget, your character might just be able to say, hey, listen, I'm busy fixing my dagger because it broke. Won't you guys go and look for treasure? And if they then say no, well, then it's the group that you're playing with, and there's not much you can do with that. But that would be my approach. Big Bad Wolf, thank you for that. I do appreciate it. A tonsure. Thank you. Yes, the tonsure. It is the little gap, the bald spot at the back of the priest's, a monk's head. There we go. Satan der Armee, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that, says alopecia areata, also known as spot baldness, is a condition in which hair is lost from some or all areas of the body. Yeah, okay, well, so I have that on my leg, oddly enough. One side of my front forward shin is completely devoid of hair. The rest is completely hair. It's really weird. Anyway, but yes, tonsures were consciously cut, and were actually, they used to use a stone and rub the stone on the hair to keep it ground down. Anyway, totally different, off the track. Squishy Squid says, in my it's moving. No, I skipped somebody. Sorry. Lord Mulgath says, how do you treat attacks of opportunity with the rug of smothering attacking and enveloping a player in terms of damage transfer? Would it transfer the damage or not? I would say it won't. So I don't know what these things are. I am running on assumption. I mean, obviously I know what an attack of opportunity is. I beg your pardon, but I do not know what a rug of smothering is. I'm assuming it's a rug that smothers. If the character is smothered, or if the character is in the jaws of a creature, giant toads, I think, can swallow people, T-Rexes and that sort of thing, I would rule that no, the damage is going to the creature, or the rug in this particular case. It is not going to the character. The damage dealt by the smothering, by the crushing, all of that kind of stuff obviously is done to the character. That's how I would take it, but I'm not the ultimate authority. I would check out Nerdarchy's live streams on a Monday night, I believe. They are the masters of technical and technique in terms of rules for 5th edition. Squishy Squid says, in my last session yesterday, during a secret conversation of the players, an NPC was eavesdropping and is now running away. A faster player is after him. How can I make the pursuit longer? Do you want the PCs to get the information that this NPC had or not? That's the first question that you need to ask yourself. If the answer is yes, you want the PCs to catch this fellow, then I would make it a series of maybe skill challenges that this character has to overcome in order to catch this person. I would also look and see if I have some other NPCs that can run interference. I would make it dramatic, have the thief run onto a ledge on the side of the building, the eavesdropper onto the side of the building, and the character have to follow along and maybe do acrobatics checks or something along those lines, and eventually catch them. So I would play it out that way. I would make it daring, dangerous, and narrative, but I wouldn't necessarily stop it at all. If you want the character to get away, I would then have some friends accost this PC, some NPC friends of the eavesdropper. It could be an old lady who falls over, make it a moral decision. You decide how to do it, but ultimately you need to prevent that from happening. So decide first what you want as the outcome. I'm not a huge fan of going, well, if they catch them, they catch them. If they don't, they don't. That doesn't help you in terms of telling an exciting event, and it doesn't help the players in terms of having a great story where they can then go back and say, oh, well, I nearly caught him, and then this old lady suddenly came up to me and begged me for help, and I went off and I had to fight some orcs, and then I came back again. You know, so I mean, there's various ways and things. So there you are. Next question. White Tiger 225 says, my Orcish society is obsessed with chess, a long story of law building, and the players are visiting for the first time. I think I need more coffee. Any tips to make this a bit more interesting when introducing the fact? Yes, absolutely. So when have you ever, or when last did you meet a 9 to 11-year-old who's obsessed with chess? Let me tell you something. The first thing that they do the moment you walk in, hey, do you want to play some chess? So I would have that happen. I would have a bunch of kids come running up to the players and beg the players to play chess with them, because they used to get, they always get beaten by the elders who are teaching them how to play chess. And finally they see someone whom they could possibly possibly beat. So they're going to invite them to play chess, and they're going to factionalize. The cool orc chess player will want the party, the other one won't. One of them might, so I would do it that way. Play on the heartstrings of the players, get them to see that these little orc kids are all busy obsessed with chess. Someone is busy sculpting the pieces out of the bones of mammoth, and just build it up. I mean, really, really, really build it up. I remember when I went through my chess phase, a friend of mine, I suppose you could say he was almost like a big brother. He was like the hero that I looked up to when I was growing up. When we would visit with him and his family, they used to live quite far away from us. I will never forget one afternoon saying, "Hey, I love playing chess." And he said, "Okay, well, let's play." And we ended up, I think it was 9 or 10 chess boards and chess games running at the same time, because he had gone through the same phase, and his parents were friends of my parents, and they were teachers, so they had lots of chess boards around. We lined them up on the dining room table, and then we'd do a move per board, and we'd play. And I think I won 7 out of the... No, I didn't win. I didn't win more than half, so I must have won about 4, maybe 5, somewhere around there. But it was awesome, and I still remember that, playing these games. So there you are. Pigeon Master 1, I am well, thank you, and thank you for the compliment. I do appreciate it. So yes, there we are. Xana the Green, clarification: Rug of Smothering has an ability that splits damage between itself and the creature it's grappled with. So the the attack of opportunity would be split between the two if it's grappling a target. Yes. Okay. Well, if that's an actual ability, then as it's read, then that's how it would be. I would imagine then it's not completely grappling it. You see, again, this is where I look at this kind of stuff and I go, well, that's a rule, and someone thought very long and hard about that. But the Rug of Smothering, it's wrapped around the person. So why the hell would the person take damage? Unless the implication is that the damage the rug is taking, it transcends through the rug, which I could see as an argument, as not a sword puncturing the rug, because that's too much damage in my opinion, but maybe a mace. I mean, maces were invented because they had to try and get through plate mail armor, and that was one of the ways of doing it. And light up the forge. World Anvil sends its people. Hello, people from World Anvil. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So there you are. Now there goes all the questions. So please, if you asked a question beforehand, you've seen what's just happened. World Anvil's just joined us, which is fantastic. Please re-ask your questions so they can bring it, so I can see them again. I do see there that we've got Ryan the Wolf asking a question. What do you think about using D&D Beyond for character management? I'm debating getting the Legendary bundle if I find I really enjoy DMing. So character management, it's an interesting one. It is an interesting one. So I remember my very first games when I was a young nipper, wee knee-high to a grasshopper. Our DM would take our character sheets at the end of every session. So we could fill them in, we could make notes, and then he would gather them up together, and then he would check them like a teacher checking homework to make sure that the XP that we had recorded was the same that he had recorded, and that, we hadn't cheated, and that we hadn't run out of food, and that we hadn't run out of ammunition, and we weren't over our weight limits and all that kind of stuff. I personally never check my players' character sheets. I don't check my players' character sheets. If they want to cheat or do whatever it is that they want to do, that's entirely up to them. I really trust them that we're all there for the same reason. Having said that, though, I am not familiar with D&D Beyond. I will be absolutely honest with you. I've seen it here and there, but because I play so little, I very seldom need to generate any kind of character or keep track. So I think that's a better question for someone like Nerdarchy well, I know Nerdarchy does a live show. I know Seth Gorkowski does a live show, but I don't think he talks about D&D. I think he talks about Cthulhu and Traveller. So anyway, there you go. What are you guys? Who uses D&D Beyond in chat? Perhaps you can help out with that particular question. Honorable 596 says, would you accept to play a character who is explicitly from an extremely inbred family? And I don't just mean royal inbreeding, also generations of fathers with daughters and brothers with sisters. Well, okay. Why would you not, unless the PC has some kind of genetic abnormality which would cause them to behave in a certain way? So if they say, oh, I want to be my mother brother and I have 6 legs, then I would say no, I don't think that's appropriate. And also most of the time you would be cast out of cities or that sort of thing. So I would want to know more about why is there that motivation. If the player says, well, no, the character's going to be fine, because that genetic weirdness that starts to happen with inbreeding, sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes everything's fine. Sometimes it does happen. So it obviously just increases the opportunity. But if it's not going to have any kind of impact and it's purely narrative, well, as a GM, putting aside your own personal feelings on what you think about that, it gives you a great opportunity to have a lot of NPCs that you can draw from. Well, hey, look, it's uncle, cousin, brother, George. He was my uncle for a while, and then, his wife died, and he married my daughter, and, I'm being flippant about it. But, yeah, the idea is if it's going to disrupt the game, then I question it. If it is purely narrative and the player is just wanting to explore something, what is it that they want to explore? Is it family relationships and that sort of thing? And I mean, we talk about royal inbreeding, but it was definitely a thing. And if you look at Cleopatra. She married her brother so that she could get the throne, and then she had him killed, and then she had her sisters killed, and then she married her sister's son. I mean, it was insane, absolutely insane. So people used to do that a lot, and I assume they would still do it to this day. I don't see why that would have stopped, but yes, I'm not sure. That would be my take on the whole thing. Stamsa says, how can someone play with you as a DM? Maybe a campaign of 5 episodes for each fan of yours. If I did 5 episodes for each fan, just on the Patreon side, that would be over 1,000 episodes or 1,000 hours, which sounds brilliant. I'm just not sure that it's possible, physically possible. I mean, we could start now and it would just be playing forever. I mean, we're going to be playing forever anyway. I don't think I'll ever stop role playing, but yes, I think it's interesting one. Look, an honest answer in terms of how can someone get into a game that I'm running. What we do is every now and again we throw it to the Patreons of the channel. And it doesn't matter what level Patreon you are. We throw it to the Patrons. Look, we're looking for some players. This is the time frame. This is what we're looking to do. Any volunteers? And then quite literally all the volunteers get together. We roll a random die and then we choose who gets to be part of that table. Sometimes there are not enough people to necessitate that random rolling. And so that happens. I know, for example, I ran a few games for podcast purposes. Or at least the games were going to be on podcast. And there we didn't have a lot of people responding to join that. I think it was a sci-fi game. I don't think I've ever actually run any traditional fantasy stuff. And then recently we asked for a one-on-one session with somebody. And we had about 9 people responding to that. And so we had to roll a die to see who got it, because it's for the one-on-one that I run on Wednesday nights. So that is it. That's how you can get there. Although I must admit, lots of people have been asking for it. I'm looking at it and I'm going, well, I'm not sure. I have a game that's supposed to be running on Friday nights. It's every second Friday. I just need to balance my schedule properly. Scorpio says, is there any way to encourage quests in your world without explicitly telling your PCs that there are quests loot there? Look, I think that it's a matter of training your players to recognize what you are offering, and it's also a matter of yourself recognizing that you need to give out rewards. So I know my players often say to me, "Oh, you never give us magical items and stuff." I look at them and I go, "You have a flying airship. That counts as a magical item. You have 10 NPCs who hang on your every word. You have a lot of stuff. You just don't recognize it as reward because it's not physical cash or a +1 sword." So when it comes to throwing out quests and things, I think the important thing, definitely the important thing, is to let them go on the quest. And even if it's a mundane quest, it's like killing rats in the cellar or finding a lost sheep, or it doesn't matter. Have the NPC at the end, whoever was responsible for giving them the quest, or even someone who wasn't responsible, come up and say, "You did such a great job. I wish I could reward you more, but here is a little something for your troubles." And it's just that will help encourage them. And in terms of how to bait things as quests, how to hook the players into it, throw out 5, throw out 10. If your players aren't on a main thread, just chuck them out there. Let someone walk past saying, "Oh, I'm looking for a strong arm. I need help." Literally, it's as easy as that. NPCs are great for introducing those kinds of things. And don't be afraid to throw out 5 or 6 of those. And let the players choose which ones sound interesting to them, and then let them go on that and then reward them so that they can see, "Oh, okay, well, when we do that, we then get there." So, yeah. All right, there we go. Where are we now? Nick the Knife says, "I am starting my game in about half an hour. Can you please wish me luck?" I wish you the very best of luck. I think you're going to have an absolute blast. So, Nick the Knife, good luck to you. Not that I think you'll need it. I think you're going to have a fun time. Draco Vale says, "I have a problem with creating a family tree that consists of species that have different lifespans. Elves, humans, and half-elves. Is there an easy way to work that out so it's consistent?" Draco Vale, I would say go to World Anvil, who've got an amazing family tree system in there. And I think your big challenge in terms of the family tree consistency, I'm trying to think what the problem would be. So if you have Elf born 1,000 years ago and is still alive, and there's 12 generations of humans underneath that, it would be more than 12 generations over 1,000 years. But anyway, you've got this massive tree and you've just got these sort of elves punctuating. Unless they marry back into that tree, then you have a problem. And legally, most countries, they would only be able to marry the it's not 4, is it? Is it 5? I think it would be 5. It would be no, it would be son, granddaughter, great-granddaughter, great-great-granddaughter. I think the next one would be the level at which that elf could then marry back into the family as then to be created. And your world will be different anyway. I mean, it's an interesting question. I'm just not sure what you need to worry about in terms of alignment. Their age category would just change up, I think. That would be my thought. Okay, let's see. Next question. Xander the Green says, "I'm writing a game where the PCs are monsters that evolve into higher CR monsters as they get stronger. Should I make them the same type, i.e. devils or demons for cohesion?" I think that even if you made them devils or demons, they wouldn't necessarily be cohesive. What creates cohesion is a common goal or a common enemy or a common purpose. So whether it's a werewolf, a vampire, a slard, and a beholder, or 5 devils, I think you're going to have the same problem. So I would not necessarily look at them in terms of the monster that makes them unique, but in terms of why are they working together. I think that would be the critical thing for me. Captain Mannix says, "Any interest in creating an adventure book similar to Fabled Lands?" Captain Mannix, I actually had started that with Michael Helverstein, who was a big fan of the Fabled Lands book series. And he was the programmer, and he was actually working out this really cool programming way in which to keep track of the Choose Your Own Adventure stuff. Now, I used to write Choose Your Own Adventure books. My very first computer that I ever got was a Commodore 64 with a dot matrix printer. And the very first stuff that I wrote on that dot matrix printer was choose an adventure books for my friends. And the biggest problem I had there was most definitely trying to keep track of the page numbers that I had used referencing where and there. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love them. I absolutely love them. Choose an adventure books. I mean, I used to collect them, and yeah, I'm busy writing a book at the moment that it's a lot of fun. It's not a choose an adventure book though. So yeah, I have definitely thought about it. Okay, Star the Windyborn says, narrative plus action economy, where is the fine line? How do you maintain the fluidity of the game without discarding its mechanics? Start the Windy Reborn, I think you should have a look at the video that I released on my main YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/how to be a great game master. And it's this week's video called The One Video You Need to Watch to Be a GM. And it talks about triggers and events. What does that have to do with mechanics? Well, to be perfectly honest with you, you choose when to apply those mechanics and when not. And if you apply them at every situation, your game slows down. If you don't apply them to any situation, why bother having them in the first place? So it's about looking at what is going to trigger an event, what is going to cause something to happen to move forward that doesn't get in the way. And I know it sounds awfully vague, but trust me, if you can look at it and say, okay, in theory, this is what needs to happen. I need to make 50 rolls. Oh, that's so many rolls. It's going to slow the game down. So let me combine those into more interesting system and into a more interesting system, but a consistent way as well. That's the biggest thing. Sorry. I hope my housemates are cooking, because otherwise something's on fire. If you combine lots of different technical bits into a single bit so that the story keeps going, that is often the best way of going. Other times it's a case of saying, look, your character you've got +7 in it. It's highly unlikely you're going to fail. So it's done. It's acceptable. Let's just move on. So yeah, I would do that. And not this week's video. I tell you a lie. It came out a while ago. How to make the right call. I think that was it. Anyway, it's one of the last 4 or 5 videos where it talks about adjudication and what one of your responsibilities as a GM. Ben Nicholson says, I saw a vid of you playtesting Star Trek Adventures a few years ago. Yeah, it was a long time ago. Do you still play it? If not, would you ever plan on playing it again? If you do, would you plan on putting it on your own channel? Okay, so Star Trek Adventures, I played the alpha version of it when it first came out, and it was, I don't want to say I was a huge fan of the system that they went with. I don't want to go that far because I was playing alpha. I would like to see what the new rules, what the final version sort of looked like. But I was put off by a few things. Their price point to me seemed excessive, but I know why. They're trying to compensate for the licensing fee from CBS. Like I said, I'm not convinced. I love Star Trek. I absolutely love it. Quite literally, unpacking from my Japan box, this is a command uniform from the Next Generation that I bought specifically to run a Star Trek game where everyone's in uniform. And I discovered the other day that World Anvil, both Demetrius and Janet, have Star Trek uniforms and would be willing to play. So I would love to do it. I don't think I would use Adventures for it, though. I don't think I would use Star Trek Adventures for it. I don't like the pool system where the DM gets points that they can use on their making their monsters or their rolls better, and the players get points. They've got to divide the points up. I don't think it adds anything to it. I think it detracts from it because it's a mechanic that the players have to metagame. So I'm not a big fan of that. I'm not a big fan of that. Like for example, I'm currently playing on a Monday night as a player, and this is not streamed anywhere, using Savage Worlds, which I think the system is not blowing my hair back because I've got less now than I had before, but there's things in there you're like, but why? Like for initiative, you use cards, you draw cards. Like, oh, you got the 4 of diamonds. You're going, and well, that's not as good as getting a 4 of clubs. And you're like, are we playing bridge or are we role playing? Anyway, I know I'm being pedantic, and every system has got its flaws. It just feels like the more recent systems have got more flaws than the older systems, and they need to have new systems in order to warrant bringing them out. So anyway, if I ever did a Star Trek role-playing, you can bet your bottom dollar it would be broadcast. It is a passion project for me for a very long time. The other challenge, though, is because I am a Star Trek fanatic, it becomes very difficult for me not to play with other Star Trek fanatics. I'm that level, so that's a problem, and I admit it. It is a problem. Anyway, all right. See, Jimmy James used to have a Commodore 64, so yes, go Commodore 64. I mean, we used to have cassette tape. A cassette tape contained the games, and you would put the cassette tape into a special deck, and you'd press play, and the computer would read off of those tapes. It didn't have a hard drive. I think it had 50K RAM. Quite literally, my cell phone is more powerful than this old machine was, but it was the gateway. It was a gateway. Anyway. So, yes. Where are we? Dolphus Collins says it is Burning Toast. Well, it's gone now, so it's either burnt down or it's done. White Tiger 225 says, I can't wait for Cyberpunk 2077. I won't say that I already have purchased it, and it's sitting in Steam waiting to download, and it's so frustrating because when you click on your little Steam icon, Steam pops up and it's like, here are the games that you've recently played, and it's sitting there going, ha, you can't play me until September. I'm curious to see what's going to happen there. I'm curious to see what is going to happen here. Watcher2417 says, how would you manage time when it comes to what month and day the players have, especially when it comes to determining the time between adventures and downtime actions? Well, Watcher2417, my very first role-playing experience with a DM that I considered to have been a planned DM, someone who put a lot of thought into it, they gave us a calendar. And they're like, there we go, there's a calendar. Tick off the days as they go by. This takes you 3 days. Tick off 3 days. There we go. Tick off 5 days. You have a week's downtime. You have this downtime. You have that downtime. So there we go. There we go. So definitely just a calendar. And you can change the names of the months. Be warned, though, that you will have to keep track yourself as well. Because there will come a time where the calendar keeper goes, I forgot to chalk off. How many days did it take us to get from point A to point C? And you're like, 3. Anyway, so it will pop up, but it is a great way. Literally just use a calendar. I think you can, well, World Anvil has a calendar. You can download a calendar from, or Word comes with a calendar, I think, even that. So anyway, so there are options for you. So yeah. Catherine Bishop says, I've been debating using World Anvil while stuck at home. Sounds great, but funds are tight. Well, Catherine, you can use it free. Most of the features are available free for use. You don't have to pay for a subscription. So give it a try. At the very least, you find that you love it. And when funds become available, you can then sign up. And when you do, use the code GreatGM to get a discount. So there is definitely that. But yeah, it's free to use. So grab it, use it, test it, see if it works for you. And if it does, then you can look towards investing in it. Next question. Again, Xander the Green. Lots of questions, Xander. I love it. Any suggestions for creating a mega dungeon that is mostly filled with traps, puzzles, riddles, and mind games with very few monster encounters until the end? My suggestion is don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. You may have seen, was it? So I was part of Save or Dice, which was Taking 20, Nerdarchy, XP to level 3, and then Michael Hunt and Lauren the Ginger Ninja. I know that's not her official name. And he ran a mega dungeon for us. It was a bit of combat, but mostly it was riddles and traps and puzzles. And it felt like it ran for months. I think it only ran for 3 months, which is 12 sessions, right? But it felt like it just went on forever and ever and ever. And the reason for it was because we weren't getting to interact with NPCs, and we weren't getting to make a decision to go on our own path. Characters in a dungeon are stuck there and they can't get out. And I think that takes a lot of agency away from us. You know, the dungeon crawls of yesteryear, I think, are great, and I think they worked really well. But we need to surface into the real world from time to time. And by real world, I mean the fantasy world in which the game is to be played, right? So the idea is don't think that keeping the players in a single space is going to be as entertaining as you might think it to be. Have them leave every now and again, even if it's they step through a portal and then the strange world and they can do some stuff and then the portal sucks them back into the dungeon. But give them a sense that they have some sort of control over where they go. Goodbye, World Anvil. You've had a wonderful evening by the looks of things. So yeah, I would do it that way, especially if your players like to go off on their own. So read your players. If your players like to solve a big thing, then maybe a mega dungeon is for you. But if they like to make their own decisions and they want to go west instead of east and they go south instead of north, then a mega dungeon is going to be dangerous. So there we are. Next question. DJ Running Man. Do you still do LARPing, and how did LARPing influence your tabletop games? Well, that's a great question, DJ Running. It's an interesting take, I suppose. I don't do LARPing at the moment. I moved to Japan, where I couldn't get into the LARPing scene there. Time and costume and money constraints were the biggest issues. And when I got to the UK, well, this virus thing started, so there ain't no LARPing happening here. I used to love the LARPing scene back in South Africa and spent lots of wonderful weekends deeply entrenched in that. And how did they affect my tabletop games? I must admit, they made me look at a lot of the rules going, yeah, the people who wrote these rules have never fought somebody with a spear. Because that just doesn't work. I know, because I've done it and it doesn't work. So LARPing, for those of you who don't know what LARPing is, it stands for live action role playing. So in other words, you dress up as your character and then you pretend to be your character whilst with a whole bunch of other players pretending to be their characters as well. Well, you might have a character sheet, but it's all first person. So I had... The last LARP that I went to, I was this elf who was trying to cause trouble within the Elvish kingdom with the eventual intention of taking it over. And he did all sorts of weird and wonderful things. And eventually, he had to transform himself into a dwarf because he pissed off one of the most powerful other player character elves in the game. And she was hunting him. And so he had to have he had to have a dwarf transform him into a dwarf. So he had to go on a quest to get it. Anyway, LARPing was a lot of fun. And like I said, firstly, what it taught me was that a lot of the rules that come out of RPGs, you go, well, that doesn't make sense. You've never had to actually walk carrying all of that stuff or this or that or the next thing. So there was definitely that. But I think the biggest thing for me was that the GMs that we had for those LARPing sessions, because it's planned, and it's a lot more planned than a role-playing session in a sense, because you have to have the NPCs as real people. So you got to orchestrate costume changes and who goes out to hide where or do what in the field and all that kind of stuff. I realized that you have to be a lot more fluid as a storyteller than when you are perhaps used to as a paper book storyteller. And it also makes you a little bit more inventive, I think, because you're going, well, I only have 5 Nazis. That was actually the last LARP that I went to. It was amazing. It was a Call of Cthulhu Nazi LARP. And yeah, we had lots of reenactors. I think there were about 40 of us at that LARP. But that's 20, I think it ended up being 10 English and 30 bad guys, basically. But that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So, yeah, anyway. So yes, those of you who do LARP, that's fantastic. And yes, once this whole COVID thing is done, I will definitely look to get back into LARPing, I should say. The primary benefit is that you get to go outdoors and run around. I will never forget one of the highlights of LARPing for me was it was this precocious elf, me basically, and we got roped into playing this game. What was it called? Blood Bowl, Death Bowl, something along those lines. But the goal of it was there was a team of 5 versus another team of 5, and it was myself and a good friend of mine who is the same shape and size as I am, i.e. fat, and the least likely to be involved in sporting events whatsoever. And then we had some other guys who were fit and healthy. But we were fighting against a team of super fit people. And so all the other players were putting bets on who was going to win. And the NPC king came in and he said, who's going to win? I will put a bet on them. And so all the bets were stacked against us. And by goodness, my elf went and hired a coach, and she came in and she showed us what to do, and da-da-da-da-da. It was just so much fun. And we won. And then the actual real life medic, because in South Africa you always have to have a medic present during LARPs, came and took the 2 very, very bright red hairy men off of the field, and we had to actually lie down for the rest of that afternoon because they were worried we were going to have heart attacks. But we won, and somewhere I still have the medal that they gave us for winning. It was brilliant. Anyway, so that's total aside. Sorry about that. There are no Nazis allowed in German LARP. Absolutely. I mean, I can completely understand that. In South Africa, if you dressed up as almost the Nazi equivalent, you would also equally be persecuted. I don't think it would be actually illegal, but you'd be an idiot to do it. So it's all about context and what is and what is not. It was fun. See you soon, Dave R, says DJ Running Man. Dave R, you're gonna kill me for that. Dave R, who the hell's Dave R? I barely remember the name of my mother. But so yeah, see you soon. Great, brilliant. I can't wait. Dave R. No, now I've gone panic blank. So that's even worse. Anyway, Netyerenbao 3000 says, my regular RPG slot has moved from in real life to online. Yeah, absolutely, as has it for most people. But not all the players are in both. Do you have advice on how to keep players invested in short-term campaigns or one-offs? Oh my God, Dave R says, I still have that Jugger match. Wow. It was called Jugger. That was what it was called. Dave R. Who the hell is Dave R? Dave. I know Dave. David. I know a couple of Davids. Oh my God. Now I'm panicking. Okay, you'll have to text me later. How embarrassing. Anyway, you see what a terrible friend I am? I'm an awful friend. Great GM, but an awful friend. I'm willing to live with that. Rowan, of course. Oh my God. Okay, so this guy, David Rowan, is an amazing person and was one of the medics who went and made me lie down afterwards, because I really think he was worried that we were actually going to die a horrible death. But anyway, so there we go. And he still has his medal. It's brilliant. It was wonderful. It was awesome. Right. Okay. So sorry. Yes. Let's go back to the question that Netjurenbao asked. So Netjuren, you asked, how do we keep our players invested in short campaigns and one-offs? A thought would be that short campaign ties into your main campaign that your other players can't make. So let's say, for example, in your main group, you've got some characters that can, they had the potential to earn an estate, and they got the estate, but now they're going off on some other main adventure. Your one-offs could be what happens in the downtime in that estate, protecting it or doing some trade that goes wrong. And so you could tie it back to your main game, but not have it in such a way that it advances anything of the main game storyline, because otherwise your players who can't make the online will feel resentful. But it also means that those who can make the online can have a bit of fun. Alternatively, what you could do is set your online campaign in the same campaign world as your in real life campaign, and have those characters as a separate group who may bump into the primary group in real life later on down the line, but they're doing stuff which will ultimately affect the in real life group as well. So that could be quite fun too. And the player's going, oh, I know if we do this, then it's going to screw up our main characters, so let's try and do it somewhere else. So you can allow for meta, obviously, in this particular case, but that's something to do. And then the other option is to see if anybody else wants to GM a one-shot. Because you never know, someone might want to GM a one-shot and you have some fun doing it. So there is definitely that. There is definitely that. How could I forget Rowan? I mean, good heavens. Have you moved to Cape Town yet? I think that was an option before I left for the deep, dark jungles of Japan. I don't think I was ever in a deep, dark jungle. I was close. Mountain Inaya. Was it Inaya? Don't get old, folks. Your memory goes. Okay, any other questions? D&D Map says, I'm in a party that consists of 5 players. We have to explore a complete city, which is about 3 miles wide, in order to find a crypt. How would you recommend we complete this task? Well, firstly, if I was your GM, you have to explore this entire city. Is it empty? Is it filled with undead that are going to attack and destroy everybody? Is the city posing opposition, or is it literally just you need to search? That's the first point. If you need to search and there's no opposition, then I would split up and move about and set up flare signals or torches that you'll hold up so that everyone can see if you found the entrance. If it's a populated city and there is going to be resistance, then what I would suggest you do, and this is depending on what your GM is like, but I would split the party into 2 groups or maybe 3 groups. So a group of 2, a group of 2, and a group of 1. See how your GM handles that. They might freak out and not know what to do. But by doing that, what you're doing is you're covering 3 times the amount of ground. You're having fun. Your GM is giving you 3 different side little adventures, depending. Again, it's tricky. So as a player, I think I'm reading this right. As a player, your primary focus is going to be on wanting to include your other fellow players. So if one of you is a thief, they are probably more likely to find a hidden entrance than the paladin, for example. But then what I would do is I would distribute the player characters based on their abilities. So if the paladin has a high charisma, maybe send them to the local temple to see if the temple has information as to where that crypt is. If you have a rogue, send the rogue to go and try and find some underground contacts who might know of this crypt. If you have a wizard, send them to the library to go and see if they can research how that, if there's ancient plans of the city that might reveal the location of the crypt inadvertently. So I would look at it that way. How can you include your fellow players and get them to go off and use their skills to your advantage? If it's filled with undead and monsters that are likely to kill your party if you split up, then I would stick together and, again, still try and figure out how best to utilize your party, but hope that your GM gets the message that you shouldn't have to cover every 3 miles, the totality of it. I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. Okay. C-May Cameron says, I'm going to be doing a one-shot for a group of players where they will be playing Pokemon. This is out of my depth, and I'm not sure where to start. I have 2 months. How should I prepare? What I know about Pokemon is incredibly dangerous. My partner once used to play Pokemon and wander all over the world, well, all over the city, trying to find these Pokemon to capture. And that's about as far as my knowledge extends. So my advice to you immediately would be, if you are running a one-shot with a bunch of players, they have obviously asked for you to do a Pokemon game. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. I would then ask them and say, well, what aspects do you particularly like? They'd probably give you the helpless answer of, oh, we like all of it, or I like the evolution of the monsters, he said, throwing a line out there. But to be perfectly honest with you, your best bet is to find some kind of forum, whether it's online or you join our Discord. If you're not part of the Discord already, I am sure you will find it in our Discord. ask somebody, hey, I got to run a Pokemon thing. What are some of the cool things that Pokemon do? Find out 1 or 2 cool aspects, things that you think are interesting to you. Ask them how that would happen, and then ask them how it could be prevented from happening, or what advantage could happen if they were abducted or taken away. And then I would build an adventure based on that. Don't try and absorb all of the lore. It's not going to happen. So if you look at Star Wars, for example, you say, well, what's cool about Star Wars? It used to be Jedi, now it's Mandalorians. I haven't watched The Mandalorian yet, but I know that cool stuff about Star Wars is that you have the evil empire who have stormtroopers running around who can't hit anything to save their lives, but who are everywhere. And they've got, there's that kind of stuff going on. Smugglers are a thing. So make the players smugglers, get them to smuggle something from one planet to another planet, and have some stormtroopers attack them, have a betrayal, have a starship attack, Star Destroyer, do a little bit of research, and then they arrive and they sell cargo. It's a one-shot, it's quick, it's simple, it's clean, and you haven't tried to learn all of the lore. That would be the way that I go. Okay. We're running out of time here. We got 3 minutes left. 3 minutes left. Good grief. Okay. Okay. Right, that was that one. Lance Pickett says, in a low magic world where magic is only for chiefs, seers, and shaman, but tattoos may be given to other classes, giving them some magical abilities, how would you decide who to award these tattoos to? I would have a system of points. Literally, if you score a certain number of points by doing great things using your character that are impressionable and honorable within the eyes of the chiefs, seers, and shaman, wow. In front of the chiefs, seers, and shaman, give them a point, give them a point, give them a point. Okay, you've accrued 5 points. Obviously, you don't put it like that to the players. To the players, you have the shaman coming up to them saying, you have presented yourself in a great many battles and have been honorable. You have been awarded the great Ma'ur tattoo of great power. You get +1 combat ability. Whatever. I mean, figure it out. But yes, absolutely, that's how you do it. Squishy Squid says, concerning the Circle of World Builders, will you present new information that hasn't been part of your videos, or will it be more like a summary? Squishy Squid is actually going to be the opposite of a summary, insofar as what I will be doing is we will be combining all of the things that I talk about in my videos. So we will be designing an adventure where we look and say, okay, well, what are the triggers? What are the events? How do we combine the narrative route of designing this adventure from the back, working our way forward? How do we work these things in? So in other words, it's bringing all of the videos together into a single point, into a single entity. So that'll probably take about 40 minutes. And then the next 10 minutes, because they're 50-minute blocks on the first day, then the next 10 minutes is asking questions and steering and driving, because day 2 is where you will then have submitted your adventures, if you want to us as the organizers of Circle of World Builders. We will randomly draw some, and then in that 2-hour block on the second day will literally be me opening up an option, reading it out, showcasing it to everybody else, viewing it, and then breaking it down in terms of, okay, cool, this is your opening line. What are some of the pitfalls? What are some of the advantages? What can we do to enhance this? How can we add to this? How can we tone it down? What are some of the challenges that are going to result from this particular choice here? How can we flesh this out, etc., etc.? So it is hopefully about bringing everything together, because something that I've noticed is the big trick, I think, anyway, to being a good player, to being a good GM. You can watch all the videos, and I thoroughly encourage you to watch them all without ad blocker on. But besides that, you can watch all of those videos, but unless you combine the knowledge together, you've got really good knowledge on how to trigger events. But if you don't know what you're triggering, which you would get from Adventures on the Fly or from designing an encounter with stakes and garnish, if you don't know how to combine those together, all your skills are not wasted, but they are lying dormant. And it's about bringing those together. So that's my focus on that side. And that will be the focus of everybody else's as well. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, we are over time. There are so many great questions here, folks. please next week join me again. Please come through with your questions next week. I know I didn't get to them. I know D&D Maps has been asking this question about the Paladin, but the rule is I read what I see and I work my way through. So please, please, please join me again next week. Same time. So an hour ago is when we started. Same channel. I will be here. And that's what we're going to do, guys. So I'm going to see you next week. I really wish it could be sooner, but it is what it is. So yeah, absolutely good luck to all of you. If you're running a game this week, I hope it's brilliant. I hope it goes well. I hope you have fun. Thank you all for being part of the stream. We had 91 people joining us today. That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. If you don't know about our Discord server, discord.gg/greatgm gets you into our Discord. There are thousands of people waiting to say hello and to answer your questions. I was actually looking at it now very, very quickly. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this person here, wait, I've got to move some windows around. Give me a second here. If you don't know what Discord is, I remember when it first came out, Michael Kesavan from Dead Aussie Gamer got me to use it. And I was so reluctant. I was like, no, it's just another social media thing. It actually isn't. It works better, I think. Anyway, so here's a Discord, for example. This is someone saying, how do you gauge your players' enjoyment of a game session? Now, I didn't answer this because I didn't see this. This came through a couple of days ago. And yet, there is this huge dialogue that's happening between... I mean, Adamil is great. Adamil is he works and runs Ethnos and is one of the moderators and is just a fantastic bloke. But and it does look like there's lots of channels. It really does. And there are lots of channels. But find the one that you like. Join that one. This is a writer's channel. Oh, goodness. Look at that. That's beautiful. This is a writer's channel. So we're hanging out. We're writing. We're driving stuff. We're talking. No judgment there. There are channels for art. And there's some great art. I mean, look at that. That's brilliant. There's some truly... I mean, there's so many talented people. Come and join us and have some fun. Okay. So there we go. There is a question channel. Ask a question. There we go. There we go. Lots of questions. 50 plus questions since I was last here. And again... I very seldom get to actually answer them because a lot of times other people have answered them and then I don't answer because it's like, well, what am I going to say? Yeah, what so-and-so said. No, there's no point. Anyway, the Discord name, I will put it into chat. So it is discord.gg/greatgm. So there we go. Anyway, thank you to everybody for joining in today. I really do appreciate it. Thanks to Dave R for making me feel like a moron for forgetting your surname. I don't know how I could do that. Anyway, I do miss you, my dear friend. Say hello to your wonderful wife. I broke his leg once. I really did. Anyway, it was for a video. It looked really cool. And gave him a bloody nose. But anyway, that's a completely different story. Until next time, folks, I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming.